Sit back and listen to this extremely interesting story. Chapter 4. Sandy leaves the hotel to stay with John. Sandy looked for her bathing suit in her suitcase and thought, should I wear a onesie or a bikini? Then she noticed a satin pink bikini in her suitcase. Sandy was sure she hadn't packed it. Then she realized that Alex must have put it in the suitcase. He couldn't really want her to wear that to the pool. Alex is just trying to mess with me, she thought. Sandy changed into her white one-piece swimsuit and high-heel sandals. She looked herself over in the mirror and said to herself, that looks respectable enough for a public pool. Sandy walked out of her room into the pool area and laid her towel out on the chase lounge. No one was using the pool yet except for a young couple and their 2 young boys. Sandy sat on the side of the pool and let her feet hang in the water to adjust herself to the water temperature. Then she let herself into the water, and after adjusting to the colder temperature, she swam a few laps. When she got out of the pool, she shivered a little from the coldness of the pool. She decided to go to the bar and order a drink. There was quite a crowd in the living room now, and Sandy could feel the men checking her out, but she ignored them and ordered a margarita. The bartender explained to her that the pool was just filled earlier in the day and hasn't had time to warm to room temperature yet. Sandy got a drink and headed back to the pool, feeling several sets of eyes on her rear as she walked away. A young man at the bar couldn't keep his eyes off of Sandy, and he hurriedly finished his beer and headed to his room to change. A few minutes later, Sandy watched as the young man walked out of his room and into the pool area. She noticed that his room was next door to her own. She watched him as he splashed into the pool, swam a lap, and got out. He was a good-looking young man with a nice tan and muscular body. She also noticed that the shorts he was wearing became a little see-through when wet. He immediately walked over to get the chase next to Sandy. "Water's a little cold today," he said. Sandy agreed with him on that, and the young man introduced himself as Jack. It turns out Jack is a local and is just staying at the hotel while his apartment is being painted. Jack noticed the wedding ring on Sandy's finger and asked if she was in town with her family. "I'm here on a business trip for a couple of days," she explained. Jack began to think that he could be alone with his beautiful wife. "Can I buy you a drink?" he offered. Sandy replied, "Thank you, Jack, I would really like that." An hour and 2 drinks later, Jack decided it was time to make his move. "I noticed your room is next to mine," he said. Sandy said she liked the rooms that open out to the pool. Originally, they were going to put her on the 2nd floor, but she was able to get it changed online before leaving for Denver. Jack went on, "Oh, so you got your room changed so you could be next to me?" After a quiet minute, he said he was just joking. Sandy decided to relax a bit and said, "That's right, I asked if there was a pool room next to a handsome young man." Then they both laughed. Sandy got up and jumped back into the pool. Jack followed her in. A couple of minutes later, he had Sandy in the corner of the 5-foot deep end of the pool, where Sandy had to rest her arms on the edge of the pool to keep her head above water. Jack moved up close and put his arms around Sandy's waist, squeezing her close. "It's okay, Sandy, I have you," he said. Sandy put her hands on Jack's shoulders. She could feel his excitement as he reached out to her and hugged her tighter. Then Sandy said, "Jack, please stop, I'm married." But instead of letting Sandy go, he teases her pleasantly, making her very excited. She relaxed and kissed him. Then she whispered to him, "There's people watching us. Let me go to my room and I will stop over to your room later." Jack smiled at Sandy and released her from his strong grip. She swam a couple of laps and teased with Jack like nothing had happened. Then she climbed out of the pool, took her towel and wrapped it around her waist and said, "See you in a while, Jack." When Sandy returned to her room, she was nervous about what to do. If she didn't go to Jack's room, how long before he would be knocking on her door? And if she told him she changed her mind, would he let it go at that? He seemed pretty forceful in the pool, and it happened so fast that she wasn't sure how to react. She had tried to say no to him, but that just seemed to make him more determined. Her cell phone started ringing. It was Alex. Alex started the conversation, asking how her day went and letting her know that he was missing her. Sandy went along with the conversation, but was waiting for a chance to tell him what had just happened at the pool. "Alex, I'm afraid to be here alone right now," she said. "What's going on? Is someone bothering you?" Alex sounded concerned. Sandy told Alex everything that had happened since she got off work and went to the pool. She explained to him that she had to play along with this guy in the pool so he would let go of her. Alex asked her if she thought he was dangerous or if he seemed crazy, and Sandy replied that she thought he was just young, stupid, and crazy. She started thinking about asking Alex if she could spend the night at Big John's house. Sandy thought, if I ask him, I know he'll think I let John beat me. She decided not to ask him. It would sound too much like their game last night. And in real life, Sandy knew Alex wouldn't want another man spending time with her. Alex said, Sandy, just put out your do not disturb sign on your door, and if you have any problem with someone knocking, then call the front desk and make a complaint. Okay, I'll do that. I'll be all right, she said. She said good night and that she was going to get something for dinner and go to bed early. Alex sounded like he was worried but told Sandy that he loved her and missed her. Sandy took off her bathing suit and put on a change of clothes. She decided she would just wear a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. She put on her black high heels, took out her cell phone and called John. John answered his phone. Hey Sandra, I was hoping you would call. Sandy told John about the guy at the pool and told him she was afraid to be there alone. She told John that Diane had gone out, or she would have asked if she could stay in her room. You can come over here and stay the night. I promise I won't bother you, Sandy, he said. Will you come and pick me up, John? She asked. John told Sandy he would be right back, and Sandy said she would wait for him in the living room. Sandy decided to put the little silky blue bikini in her purse. Later, sitting at the bar drinking and waiting for John, she wondered why I had brought that little thing. If we were going swimming, I wouldn't wear it. She went back to her room and put her black bikini in the bag, but left the previous bikini in the bag. Back at the lounge, as Sandy was trying to nurse her drink slowly, the bartender who had served her earlier decided to try his luck. Sandy told him, I'm going to tell you something just because I like you. A very large and muscular man is going to be here to pick me up, and I wouldn't want him to think you're trying anything with me. The bartender smirked. You mean Jack? Yeah, he's already been bragging about everything he's been talking to you tonight. How about I try it tomorrow night, doll? The words no sooner left his mouth when John entered the lounge. He walked right over to Sandy with a big grin on his face. He put his hand on her shoulder and asked her if anyone was bothering her. Sandy felt so relieved that he was there. She told him everything was okay. John sat next to her, looked at the bartender and ordered 2 more of what Sandy was drinking. Sandy rested her head on John's huge upper arm for a second and said, Thank you so much for coming to my rescue. After finishing their drinks, they walked out to John's car and headed towards his house. John pulled into a pizza place and said he had ordered a large combo to go, asking if that would be okay. Sandy replied that pizza would be fine. John was back out in a minute, and they pulled into his driveway 10 minutes later. John suggested that they sit on the patio, and Sandy agreed that would be nice. Sandy looked around and was amazed at John's home. This place looks really expensive, John, she said. John replied, I'm just renting it for now, but I have an option to buy any time during my lease. The bar is just through the sliding doors if you would like to fix a drink, he offered. John had a large cooler sitting by the pool, and he walked over to it and pulled out a beer. I have beer and wine coolers in the cooler. Can I get you one? Sandy looked in the cooler and took out a wine cooler. This sounds good, and that pizza smells great, Sandy said. They sat down at the patio table and enjoyed the calm breeze, pizza, and refreshments. Sandy asked if she could have a look around, and John told her to feel free. Walk through the bar, and the door to the left is a spare bedroom with bath. It's yours as long as you like, John offered. Sandy looked through the house and found the master bedroom upstairs. This is bigger than my entire main floor, she thought. I never realized he was so well off. She returned downstairs and went into the guest bedroom and was amazed at the size and decor. The bathroom was very large with separate shower and very large jacuzzi bath. Sandy placed her belongings on the bed and walked back out to the patio. This place is beautiful, she told John. Not as beautiful as you are, Sandy, he replied. After a brief pause, he added, Sandy, I told you I wouldn't bother you. Feel free to use my house as if it were your own. I am going to go for a swim and maybe a sit in the hot tub before calling it a night. John went into the house to change into his swim trunks while Sandy got another wine cooler and sat down at the patio table. A few minutes later, John stepped out onto the patio. Sandy looked at his muscular arms. His legs were long and well developed. His stomach was flat with well-defined abdominal muscles. He was wearing bright yellow trunks that came down to mid-thigh and clung tightly to his strong legs. Sandy felt out of breath for a moment as she watched John walk towards the pool. This is the most beautiful figure I have ever seen, she thought. John jumped into the pool with a splash, and Sandy returned to the house to change into her black bikini. A few minutes later, she returned to the pool and jumped in. She swam up to John and placed her arms around his neck. I think I want to be bothered, she said. Then she moved her lips closer to Jones's. He looked into her big brown eyes and knew she was his for the night. He put his big hands on her sides and pulled her closer as he kissed her for the first time. He felt her body tremble, and they broke the kiss. They played in the pool for a few minutes, and Sandy got out to return to her drink she had left on the table. The water felt great, but now out of the pool it was feeling cold in the night air. John walked up behind her and put his hands on her shoulder. "Are you cold?" he asked. John took the lid off the hot tub and turned it on. The water lit up from the lights, and jets began to churn the water. Sandy and John walked into the bathroom, and Sandy noticed how John's clothes puffed up from the jets. They both laughed, and he told Sandy that when he's alone he takes hot baths without his clothes on. Sandy told John about another bikini her husband had mistakenly packed in her suitcase. She said, "I almost had enough nerve to wear it in the pool a few minutes ago." John said, "You look beautiful in anything, but I bet I really missed seeing you in that bikini." Sandy asked, "Do you want to see me in it?" Sandy got out of the bath, wrapped herself in a towel, and went inside. Sandy changed into another bikini, more revealing. She put on black heels and looked in the mirror. The silky material clung to her skin, and she wondered how it would look wet. She knew it would look obvious. She wrapped the towel around her waist and returned to the patio. Sandy walked up to the hot tub holding the towel, her wedding ring sparkling in the light from the tub. "Are you ready?" she said as she dropped the towel. John looked over at Sandy in her new outfit. She got into the tub and said, "Okay, John, it's your turn." John said, "That's not fair. I don't have a bikini to change into." Sandy responded by telling him that he had already told her that he liked to be shirtless when he was in the hot tubs, so he should just take them off. They both laughed. "Are you embarrassed, John? Take off your shorts so I can see what Shah got." Sandy laughed. John stepped out of the tub and said, "Okay, off they go." Sandy knew where this night was heading and began to worry that if it went much further she might not be able to change course. John slipped his thumbs into the elastic waistbands on his torso and slowly lowered them. He hesitated and looked at Sandy, noticing the serious look in her eyes and the slight smile on her lips. He slowly finished what he had started. He got back into the tub, standing directly in front of Sandy before sitting down next to her. Sandy said, "My God, you are endowed." John was impressive. "How excited can you be?" she asked. John said, "I really don't know, never thought about it. Maybe 8 or 9 inches, I guess." Sandy moved closer to John and they started kissing again. She began to touch his body with her tiny hand. Jonah also stroked her, confusing her. Sandy felt John start to worry. "I think I feel something trying to crawl up my stomach," Sandy said jokingly. John wrapped his arms around her. Sandy looked at John in the eyes and said, "Take me to your bed, Johnny." Sandy and John got out of the bath and toweled themselves off. John walked through the sliding doors and Sandy followed, admiring his figure. John took Sandy's left hand, feeling for her wedding ring, and led her up the stairs to his bedroom. Sandy climbed 3 steps, turned, and put her arms around John's neck. He lifted her off the floor as she wrapped her legs around his waist. Entering his bedroom, they were excited. When they got to the bed, John turned around and sat on the bed, Sandy sitting facing him. He reached behind Sandy and undid the pink satin bikini. John lay down and Sandy started stroking him. "I need to see how big your excitement is going to be. I've never seen that before except my husband," she said quietly. John asked, "So how is Alex?" Sandy replied, "Alex is average, from what I've read. You can beat Alex without even straining." As Sandy stroked John, his excitement grew. Sandy was surprised at the strength of John's hard-on, but she knew it was because of his younger age. "My God, John, you are wonderful and full of strength." She began to please John. John told her it was fantastic. "I've dreamed of spending time with you since the first time we met. I want to enjoy it all night." He said, "John, I want you to know that I have never been with a man other than my husband, and I didn't plan on this happening." John replied, "You're too hot to be with just one man." "Sandy, I think Alex knows that too." John rolled Sandy onto the bed. They switched roles. Now John was pleasuring her. Sandy said, "Oh my gosh, you're doing so great." John continued until she couldn't hold back any longer. "John, please stop. I'm going come." John didn't stop. He was doing it so well that Sandy felt pleasure like never before. John then moved. "Are you ready for this, Sandy?" John got down to business and they became friends. "Oh, Sandy, you're the best woman I've ever spent time with." Sandy gasped, "Oh God, oh my God, you're too good, John." She cried. It was too late for John to stop now. He was halfway there. He kept going and getting harder and harder. Then John rolled onto his back. Sandy moved and it was her turn to work. She started slowly. They spent time together more and more lively, working and kissing. "Sandy, I'm about to have fun. Can I share with you?" he asked. Sandy said, "Yes, John. I want to feel how pleased you will be." She positioned herself so that Jen would be more comfortable. They continued for quite a while as John enjoyed himself and Sandy felt it. With her heart pounding and with a shaky voice, Sandy said, "Wow, that was better than I ever thought possible, John." John replied, "You looked like an inexperienced teenager, Sandy." Sandy lay down next to him. She watched as his excitement gradually passed. As they cuddled together on John's bed, some tears began to run down her face onto John's stomach. John looked at Sandy and asked, "Why are you crying? I thought you enjoyed our time together. Did I hurt you?" Sandy was silent for a moment and then told John, "It's like the first time I've ever done it. I've cheated on my husband. I never thought I could do it to him." John held her for a few minutes and then said, "I'm sorry, Sandy. I didn't know you'd never been with another man. I always thought you were just playing to make her hard to get. You looked so beautiful at the bar that night. I could see Alex's reaction to that. I noticed the chain on your beautiful wife's ankle and thought that your husband allows you to spend time with other men." Sandy looked into John's eyes and asked, "Why do you think Alex would want me to spend time with anyone but him?" John replied, "Sandy, that's what the term beautiful wife means. Don't you know that a husband allows his wife to dress attractively and socialize with other men? Where did you get the chain? What do you think that means?" Sandy told John that Barb had given it to her because she didn't want it. Barb's divorced sister had stayed with her for a couple of months and left it behind when she moved away. Sandy said Barb thought it just meant the woman was beautiful but also married, like a wedding ring saying she was already engaged. "John, I would never have worn this to work today if I had known what it meant. My God, Alex saw me wearing it. What must he think of me? He probably doesn't know what it means either, or he'd never let me wear it." John stroked Sandy's silky soft hair and said, "Well, Sandy, most married men probably have no idea about beautiful wives. The only reason I know that is because I love married women. If you look it up on the internet, you will see that there are many married couples who like the lifestyle of beautiful wives." They talked some more and soon both fell asleep. Sandy began to dream of herself as a promiscuous wife, dressing, flirting, and going out with other men, telling her husband not to wait. Sandy's hand touched John's, and she awoke to the feeling that he was excited again. She was very hot from her sleep. John turned on his side facing Sandy. Sandy turned on her side to face John and pressed herself against him. They spent time together again. When Sandy woke up in the morning, John was in the shower. Sandy went down to the guest bedroom and got dressed. She stayed at John's house for the rest of the week, enjoying the time together. She stayed at the hotel Saturday night and shared stories with Diana. She asked Diana if she knew that she was a beautiful wife, and Diana replied that she had heard about it. She told Sandy that this was not the situation because her husband would never accept it. Diane said to Sandy, "What he doesn't know won't hurt him." On Sunday morning, Diane and Sandy went to the airport and caught their flight home. Subscribe to our channel so that your second C gaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.